So welcome everyone. My name is Julie Trone and I am from the Zonta Club of Fort Collins. Welcome to our March meeting of Zonta Says Now Intercontinental Think Tank. Appreciate everyone coming at various times of the day and night. Everyone, thank you again for muting your microphone and your video. You may raise your hand if you have any questions throughout. And we switched a little bit of Q&A, didn't we, Carol? Because some of our speakers have to go early. And also, please be patient if we have any technical difficulties from anyone, because we're in different parts of the world. So internet can be sensitive in different places. You can also ask questions in the chat line, and we have Pia here today, one of our work group members who we adore. She's going to monitor our chat. The frog that you see in today's meeting has an enormous smile to remind us that tomorrow is the 20th of March and it's UN or United Nations International Day of Happiness. I hope you'll be able to enjoy that. The meeting is recorded, but conversations in the breakout rooms later on, it will not be in the final recording. Carol?
Okay. I'll put my video on while I'm talking. We've got quite a program today, so I think we will get moving. Say hello in the chat line and where you're from today. And delighted to welcome members of our District and International Advocacy Committee. And this evening's event is brought to you by the working group. I think you're getting to know more about nowadays. I just want to quickly go through the actions from the last meeting. As you're aware, we've finalised the fact sheet and sent it to Zonta International for approval. I circulated the blank frameworks for people to complete and send back. I've had 3 received so far, but if you get the opportunity to fill out the frameworks and send them back, that would be wonderful. We're seeking volunteers to progress the Intercontinental Think Tank project survey, which we're hoping to do on women in disaster preparedness. So if you want to be involved with that, please put that in the chat line. And we'll talk about I'll refresh your memories about the survey and the international project later on. I remember at the last meeting, we were talking all about women in disaster preparedness, and we showed video of the UN Women projects, empowering women in the Pacific, how they can lead in disaster response. And we hope to work on that theme for a project together. So things are moving along, and we will, if you can complete your frameworks, and if you want to help with something else with the other project, please let us know. Okay, I think Julie's catching up with us. That's the working group. So that's the actions from the last meeting I quickly went through. And now we're sharing stories of climate action from different parts of the world today. And our first speaker is from New Zealand. So I'll hand over to Eric from India to introduce her. Over to you, Eric. Eric, are you on mute?
Sorry. Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to each one of you all today. It's a privilege for me to introduce our first speaker, Helen Bowie. She's from Zonta Club, Wellington, District 16, New Zealand. She's a member of Zonta International Advocacy Committee from 2018 to 2020. She was also the advocacy chair of Zonta International District 16, New Zealand. In her day job, Helen is a commercial lawyer at Chapman Triff Solicitors. She's also a member of the New Zealand Council of Legal Education. It's past midnight, nearing 1 a.m. in New Zealand. Thank you, Helen, for staying up so late for this presentation. Over to you, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. Can you all hear me okay? Julie, can you tell me you're okay? And I'm going to try and share my screen. And Julie, if you just tell me if I do this correctly and that you see the full presentation. So I'm just going to try this now. Can you see that in full screen, Julie? Can you just nod if that's correct? Yep. Okay, we're good to go. And so it's been a big week. One of the things that happened last week is that Michelle Yeoh won the Academy Award for Best Actress. And I was very interested to see that immediately after she received that award, the New York Times published a guest essay written by her. Now, is it going to work?
Oh, there you go.
If I may interrupt, are you trying to change your slide?
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. There we go. Yeah. Sorry, I'll just say that again. And I was very interested to see that immediately after she received that award, the New York Times published a guest essay written by her on the very topic that we are discussing today. In that essay, she says, and I quote, "I'm 60 years old and I just won my first Oscar. I know something about perseverance and I am all too aware of what society expects of women. I'm also well aware that my experience can't compare at all with that of the women heroes I met who are on the front lines of crises. But I can do one thing with this moment of my professional joy. And if I can do one thing with this moment of my professional joy, it would be to point the spotlight on those who all too often go unacknowledged, the women who are rebuilding their communities, taking care of children and older people, and putting food on the table. Let's make sure they are not missing from the room when decisions are being made that affect them the most." So I highly recommend this entire essay to you, which traverses the effects of disasters, including climate change disasters, on women's lives and the importance of women in decision-making roles. The essay dovetails precisely with what I am going to talk about today, albeit that my focus will be on the recent experiences of a small corner of the South Pacific, namely my country, New Zealand. So today I'm going to cover 4 things: the recent climate change-driven disaster affecting New Zealand, namely Cyclone Gabrielle, the importance of women in leadership and climate change decision-making, the importance of statistics that women are counted, and the importance of fair and equitable settings in all aspects of women's employment. I'm going to start with Cyclone Gabrielle. So there it is on a satellite view of our edge of the globe. Cyclone Gabrielle is one of the worst storms to hit New Zealand in living history. Between the 12th and 14th of February this year, parts of New Zealand recorded rainfall amounts of 300 to 400 millimetres, wind gusts of 130 to 140 kilometres per hour, and waves were recorded as high as 11 metres along some of our coasts. The cyclone was preceded by another cyclone, which hit New Zealand on the 27th of January. So the land was already saturated in many places, and many people were still recovering from the previous cyclone when Cyclone Gabrielle hit. 11 people lost their lives as a result of Cyclone Gabrielle. It is estimated that the cyclone displaced 10,500 households by landslips, flooding, and tidal surge. Many roads, including state highways, became impassable. Communications, including cell phone communications, were cut off in areas across the northern and eastern parts of the country, and power supplies were cut off for days and in some cases, weeks. The cost to recover is estimated to be in the region of $13 billion. To put this into perspective, we are an OECD country of just over 5 million people. This cost of the recovery is massive for our economy. So these recent extreme events have been a real wake-up call for New Zealand. We don't usually have cyclones of this magnitude and intensity come this far south in the South Pacific. The climate scientists who have studied the models and the actual events tell us that Cyclone Gabrielle was supercharged by climate change. And I hasten to add that I'm very conscious that New Zealand isn't the only country recently affected by extreme weather. Since Cyclone Gabrielle a month ago, our newsfeed has been filled with news of the effects of extreme weather in Vanuatu, California, Turkey, and Peru, to name a few. The short point is that climate change is not a future issue. It affects people, and in particular vulnerable populations, everywhere around the world today. So I want to talk a little bit now about the importance of women in leadership in climate change decision-making. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change states that better integration of women into decision-making at all levels related to climate change helps improve climate mitigation and adaptation policies. I think that proposition is generally accepted. There is evidence now that a higher proportion of female representation in Parliament leads countries to adopt more stringent climate change policies. It's interesting to examine those findings against the New Zealand experience. New Zealand now has a majority of women members of its Parliament. So there are just over 50% of members of Parliament in New Zealand who are women. The New Zealand Parliament has enacted a Zero Carbon Act, which includes a commitment to the 1.5 degree target, as well as net zero emissions target and yearly emissions budgets. So that is generally positive. Our former Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, was a very strong advocate for progress on climate change. She championed the view that New Zealand had an opportunity to shape its identity by making the transition to reduced emissions. However, agricultural sector emissions account for 50% of New Zealand's overall greenhouse gas emissions. And the agricultural sector is currently not included in the emissions trading scheme. This exclusion is a major point of criticism from the experts, and this matter is the subject of much discussion given the importance of agriculture to our country. It will be interesting to see how Cyclone Gabrielle shifts the thinking regarding the need for emissions reduction. Already, the political polls show a boost in support for the Green Party since Cyclone Gabrielle, no doubt brought about by the spectre of the need for more urgency in the reduction in emissions. In any event, when the mitigation strategies are debated in Parliament, it is good to know that we have a strong women's voice. I want to mention also that the government here will shortly introduce new legislation dealing with disaster readiness, response, and recovery. Zonta District 16, which is the Zonta district for New Zealand, has advocated that this new legislation be drafted having regard to gender issues. I want to talk next about the importance of statistics. Zonta District 16's research over the last several years has indicated a relative paucity of clear and accurate publicly available information about women's social needs, violence against women, and aspects of women's employment. This lack of information regarding the status of women is particularly concerning, especially where critical policy decisions are being made by government about funding allocation after a crisis, such as a climate change disaster. We have advocated for the government to build robust and regularly updated data sets recording the status and experience of women in New Zealand. In times of national crisis, whether economic, health, or natural disaster events, impacts on women need to be measured against reliable baselines. It is often said, what gets measured gets done. Women will repeatedly miss out in the recovery phases unless clear and publicly available data is readily available to track their progress. We have written in the past to our Minister of Women about this issue, and I think it is fair to say that the government has made significant strides in improving data in this space. It's very important that the data covers Maori, Pacifica women, women with disabilities, women of different ages, and other demographics. And going forward, it is important that the information be readily obtained when the next crisis inevitably occurs. I want to talk about women's employment now. Events such as Cyclone Gabrielle place a spotlight on a number of areas where fair and equitable settings in employment are critical to improve the resilience of women across New Zealand. The New Zealand government has been proactive in this space, initiating a women's employment action plan. Zonta made a submission supporting this plan and making suggestions as to how it could grow over time. As we enter the recovery phase of Cyclone Gabrielle, a variety of circumstances have conflated to put extreme pressures on the supply of workers, particularly in the trades. Such pressures are also likely to emerge in the recovery phase of any climate change disaster, or for that matter, any natural disaster in New Zealand that has a significant impact on infrastructure and other property. The training of women for good jobs and trades that have been traditionally male-dominated makes very good sense from a New Zealand Inc. perspective. We know that women experience barriers to joining trades where they are traditionally underrepresented. These barriers include lack of knowledge about opportunities and pathways, male-dominated workplace culture, and in some cases, lack of sector or workplace support for women, including ensuring that workplaces have appropriate facilities and are safe for women. At Zonta District 16, we have advocated for a shift in attitudes about women, including young women taking jobs in trades. So in conclusion, I just want to reiterate some of the points I've made. The recent tragic cyclone, Cyclone Gabrielle, has brought devastation to our country. It's an unprecedented event, and it reminds us that climate change is here and is part of our future. I think we are lucky in New Zealand to have a government with strong representation of women, with now just over 50% women members of our parliament. There are opportunities for strong women's voices to be heard as legislation is passed regarding climate mitigation and adaptation. And Zonta District 16 will continue to make submissions advocating for the advancement of women in this space. Two areas of our focus in which the New Zealand government is responding to are as follows. Building robust and regularly updated data sets, recording the status and experience of women in New Zealand. This will ensure reliable baselines to inform decision-making when the next crisis occurs. We firmly believe what gets measured gets done. And finally, ensuring fair and equitable settings in employment across opportunities, skills, and pay. Improving these settings is critical to improve the resilience of women across New Zealand, particularly in the aftermath of a climate change disaster. Thanks very much.
That was great, Helen. Thank you so much for that. Eric, were you going to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Helen, for sharing your story. Our next speaker is Amissah Quainoo from Ghana, and I will hand over to Dilruba Ahmed from Bangladesh to introduce her. Over to you. Thank you.
Hello, a very good evening to all of you. I wonder what it is your time, but it's 6 o'clock my time. It's really a pleasure and delight to introduce the gathering, our speaker this evening, Miss Amissah Quainoo, Zonta Club of Accra 2, District 18, Ghana. Miss Amissah Quainoo is a member of Zonta Club of Accra 2, District 18, and was president of the club from 2019 to 2021. She is a development economist and the founder of MEL Consulting Limited. As a management consultant, Ms. Quainoo has worked extensively in Africa and Asia in areas such as development policy and programs, gender equality and social inclusion, private sector development, agribusiness value chains development, development finance, and market access for a variety of clients, including national governments. The World Bank, the US Agency for International Development, USAID, the African Development Bank, ADB, the European Union, EU, the International Fund for Agriculture Development, IFAD, among others. As the co-founder of the Agribusiness Value Chain Federation, Ghana, she is a hands-on investor and works extensively in the rice, maize, soybean, cashew, and selected vegetables and spices value chains with a focus on supporting smallholder farmers, especially the youth and women, with access to finance, production, processing, and market access, including international commodity trade. Friends, I present before you Amissah, and I had great pleasure in knowing what has been doing in her career. So I wish her good luck, and may we derive beneficial knowledge from her delivery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa, for that introduction. And it's just past 12, almost 12:30 here. So good afternoon, ladies. A very civil time for me. So I do understand 6 a.m. your end, and for the Australians, they should be fast asleep. But it's nice to be part of this program. And looking forward, Julie, I think you can share for me. Thank you. Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, my presentation is looking at Ghana's response to climate change. And incidentally, I was the lead researcher just from September to November last year on Ghana's response to climate change. We were putting together a paper as part of an international group for the climate change forum that was held last year. So this is very much something I'm into, and I'm so interested, and I hope I'll be able to share some ideas with you. Just as a brief background, Accra, which is the capital city of Ghana, is actually below sea level. Accra is below sea level, and yes, you can see from these pictures that the impacts of climate change, flooding, is literally swallowing up our coastline and our cities. And indeed, government is focusing a lot on programs and interventions to protect habitats and reclaim our coastlines to the best extent that they can. So flooding, I was just telling Carol and the rest of the ladies at the beginning, the rainy season is starting, and you can imagine we're just getting scared because the flooding has already begun. We can go to the next slide, please. You have a lot of informal settlements along the coastline. Because that part of Accra is very flood prone, nobody is selling the land. So what you find is migrants coming in who don't have anywhere to stay, end up staying in these flood prone locations, and informal housing and markets just spring up overnight. You just see them springing up. And what you're seeing on your screen is a very typical example of what you see along the coastline of Accra. We go to the next slide. So Odona on the left of our screen, the Odona River is a major river that comes from the mountains of Abri right through most of Accra to the lagoon, Kole Lagoon, and into the Atlantic Ocean. And Old Fadama on the right is a settlement right at the estuary where the Odona River goes into flows into the Atlantic Ocean. And what you're seeing is very typical of what we're going to see of most of Old Fadama from April, May, June. June is the worst part of it. A lot of flooding, a lot of displacement of homes, and the markets that are along that's a part of the lagoon. And as you know, for West Africa, the markets are owned and controlled by women. They are the faces you see in the markets. So this affects a lot of livelihoods and a lot of families. We go to the next slide, please. So all the interventions are aimed at addressing the issues affecting the informal communities, the markets, the businesses, and how to improve resilience. I think if we don't do a lot now, we will probably lose a lot of these communities in the very near future. And the population numbers are huge. During my research, Old Fadama, I was told, probably has about 100,000 inhabitants minimum. It's a very dense community. This is a very dense community. So the focus is improving resilience so that we can protect these communities and their livelihoods. The next slide, please. Now, the interventions that have been pursued in Ghana by both the government and international agencies and some private sector social responsibility funds is looking at how to address the informal businesses and then protect the communities. Next slide, please. The UN Habitat Slum Upgrade project at Gamashi. Gamashi is a very old town, old Accra. That is what we call Gamashi. You have a lot of, it's very rich in terms of the colonial past of Ghana. Gamashi has British Accra, Dutch Accra, Danish Accra. You've got all of them there. And it's a very interesting community, mostly fishing, but the slum is growing. The slum is really, really growing. Refuse collection is a huge challenge, and therefore you find that the estuary gets blocked, and that this also causes more flooding. So the interventions are looking at door-to-door refuse collection so that it can improve the drainage or the spillage of water from gutters, from the small rivers into the Atlantic Ocean, and also to provide some seed capital for mutual funds to support income generation activities, and also support the upgrading of the community as a whole and housing. Incidentally, it's all integrated into a huge project, which is looking at the coastline of Accra, from Gamashi all the way to the castle, which was a former seat of government built by the Danes. You're talking of about a stretch of maybe 25 to 30 kilometers. They are looking at a whole upgrade of that whole stretch, partly to reclaim and to protect the coastline of Accra. We can go to the next slide, please. The Greater Accra Resilient Project is another intervention, and it's focusing on dredging the Odor River. As I said, this is a major river running from the hills of Abri down through Accra, right to the Atlantic Ocean, suffers a lot from dumping of refuse. And so as it rains for about 1 or 2 hours, and a huge chunk of Accra is flooded. So dredging of this river is a major project, and it's looking at other slum dwellings on it. During my research, I did spend quite a bit of time along this riverbank, and they're doing quite a bit. I saw a lot of dredging going on. I saw a lot of like docks being built to protect the flow of water and then to protect the communities along the riverbank. You have quite a few markets along the riverbank. And again, if flooding takes place, it affects a lot of women-owned business. We go to the next slide. Now, because flooding affects huge markets in Accra, and if these markets are affected, homes and livelihoods for women-owned businesses are affected, one of the key strategies is to decongest and relocate bulk activities which attract people into these informal markets. If anybody's been to West Africa, you can just picture this bustling scene. You know, the trucks, the women, the carts. It is huge. And when on market days, the kind of congestion in these areas is just phenomenal. And these are the distribution hubs for foodstuffs to feed most of the country and the urban populations. Foodstuff with stables from throughout West Africa, from Ghana, all of them come to these locations. And Old Faudama, the picture which I showed you earlier, is a huge hub for foodstuff distribution throughout Ghana and throughout Accra. So what government is trying to do is to relocate some of these bulk activities to less congested parts of the metropolis. And you can imagine when that decongestion takes place, you are literally evicting people from these communities. There's always a huge outcry. But when I was doing my research, I realized that quite a chunk of Old Fadama has been decongested and reclaimed. So yes, some success being chalked, but in the process, displacing a lot of people and not really giving them a solution to where you're going to put them. The next slide, please. So what can Zonta clubs in Ghana do? And we can go to the next slide. Zonta clubs in Ghana, as a first response, we work with NADMO, which is a disaster management organization. So we are able to provide immediate food, clothing, medication that is needed, because as soon as people are displaced, they've lost everything. What are they going to eat? So these are some of the things we try and do. And I think that we need to start preparing for that, because definitely we're going to see some of this happening in the next few months. So something we've been doing, we need to plan for it and start putting resources together so that we can put our widow's mite into the pot to support women and young girls that are displaced when the flooding occurs. The next slide, please. Before I go to this slide, there was very interesting development recently. Government was trying to put up a multi-story dormitory that was to house Kayaye. Now, Kayaye is, these are headquarters, like this young lady you see in the picture. They have this pan that they use. If you're shopping and you need somebody to help you, they will follow you throughout the market. You'll be dropping your shopping into the into the pan. She will accompany you where you're going, and then you pay her a fee. Now, a lot of these young women are migrants from the northern part of Ghana. They come and then they just sleep in front of the shops and anywhere and everywhere in these markets. It's a very, very heart-wrenching sight. So in an attempt to try and solve their housing problem, government was putting up a multi-story dormitory block for them at Old Fadama. Well, when the soil cutting took place, then the problem began. The community leaders of Old Fadama organized a protest and immediately put a stop to the construction of the building. What was their reason? If you put up this building, it's going to serve as a magnet and draw more of these girls here to work as kayaye. This dormitory block is not going to solve the problem. You need to go, the leaders of the community said to government, you need to go to those communities where many of these young girls are coming from, get them some education, give them some income generating activities so that their communities will prosper, they will stay there and not come to Accra and become displaced kayaye. So as I speak, that project is now on hold, and it's a very, very controversial and touchy issue. So I'm thinking that now, and I've had a discussion with a few of my Zonta colleagues, we think that we should look at how to undertake interventions or collaborate with NGOs that are undertaking interventions in the northern communities where these young girls come from. And as was mentioned in my profile, I work a lot in the northern parts of Ghana, in agribusiness, in the rural communities. So my focus this year will be to at least identify 2 communities where a lot of young girls are drawn from, who come to Accra as kayaye, and see what I can do with for these young girls with the women's groups who are working there. Is it food processing? Is it farming? Whatever. We will look at that, and I will probably share some information later on in the year, so you know what I've been able to do in the north when it comes to agriculture in those communities where a lot of these young women come to Accra as kayaye. So we can go to the next slide. Again, Zonta clubs in Ghana, especially my club, we currently have a scholarship scheme for 12 young girls. We've been supporting these young girls for about 7 years now, through primary school, through junior secondary, and now senior secondary school. We're very, very happy with the girls. They've all been able to stay throughout. And one actually fell out because she got pregnant, but she's back in school, and we've enrolled her back onto our scholarship. So we're looking at how we can probably set up scholarship schemes in those communities in the north and other parts of the country where a lot of these young girls are drawn into Accra, Old Fadama to work as kayaye, so that we can keep them in school in collaboration with the school heads and the PTAs of the schools. We will see how best we can support them to keep them in school. Even if we're only able to work with 10, that's a huge number, because you find that these girls come to Accra, look out for them in a year's time, and they will all have babies, which they can't feed and nourish. That's 20 people who will be displaced in Accra. So we'll see what we can do about scholarship schemes for those kind of communities up north. The next slide, please. Advocacy, and Zonta clubs in Accra do quite a bit of that. We need to look at the issues that affect women disproportionately as far as climate change is concerned. And in my research, the first thing was housing and the loss of their businesses. So what can we do to protect them? What are the agencies that are involved? How can we influence policy so that more resources are diverted into helping these women? We have rural and low-cost housing schemes springing up all over. But once these buildings have been built, they're too expensive. The women cannot afford them. So what can we do to influence the policies or the funding for such projects so that they can look at really low costs and not middle income, and then it's all snapped up by a few people who end up renting them at exorbitant prices. So advocacy is something we do. We will continue to do a bit more of it, but we'll look at focusing on the areas that are affecting climate change in Ghana. The next slide, please. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Do I say something?
Yep.
Yes. Well, thank you, Abba, for this very insightful presentation. We have very fortunate to have you as a speaker because you have given us how your government and how you have been involved with the climate change programs. So,
Yes.
and especially as Zonta Club is also involved with advocacy program. This is good. We all learn
Yes.
from each other, and surely
Yeah.
we will also try and do this sort of work in our clubs and areas. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Yeah. We have the same problem like flooding, and I know exactly how it is when they get displaced, especially women,
Yeah.
as they are also heading the businesses. So I wish you good luck for your country and all the best for your research. Thank you so much for the delightful
you.
presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm Bobby Cardillo, and we've just heard about New Zealand's activities in the South Pacific. We've heard about what's happening on the west coast of Africa, and now we're going to go into the center of the continent of Europe. And I'm delighted to introduce our speaker from Switzerland, Annette de Rosa, from the Zonta Club of Lausanne. Annette describes Switzerland as having 730 years of democracy, 200 years of neutrality, and 150 years of peace and prosperity. Annette was born in Germany, and she moved to the French-speaking part of Switzerland when she was 16 years old. She graduated first from Swiss high school and went to Lausanne University, finishing with master's degrees in business administration and political science. After a few years of working experience as an economic editor, she quit her job to raise 2 children. And after this, she made her career in a family office, ending up as its manager. The position embraced a wide variety of activities and intensive traveling. Annette retired 3 years ago and is still very busy today. She joined the Zonta Club of Lausanne in 2009 and has been the club president, the area director for District 30, Area 4, and the ZI representative at the United Nations in Geneva. She has also been the president of the Swiss Union of Zonta Clubs, called Intercity, and is now the advocacy and UN chair. She has also been the area and district secretary and is presently the club secretary. Annette says that she still doesn't like to speak in front of people, but there is so much to do, and her little bit might just help us make a change. So I'm delighted to welcome Annette.
Thank you very much for this introduction. I would like to share the screen now with my presentation that is here. Do you see?
Yes, it is on.
Okay, but this is not the view that I want to. Okay, now here we go. So I would like to run through my roadmap of the presentation, but actually before I can talk about climate change in Switzerland, you have to know some facts about my country, my new country, as it's a little bit more than watches, cheeses, chocolates and banks. So here are quick facts. Switzerland, since its very picturesque foundation in 1291 by 3 peasant leaders, has become a confederation of 26 cantons, a direct democracy, and has been declared politically neutral. The neutrality made it possible for us to become a major stakeholder as a negotiator and peacemaker in international conflicts. The 26 cantons speak 4 official languages and are mainly divided into 2 zones, the economically and politically strong north, speaking German and its dialect called Schweizerdeutsch, and Romanche, which is a very special dialect, and the south, speaking French and Italian. As for the geography, Switzerland is a very small country situated really in the heart of Europe. Almost 60% of it's the Alps in mountains peaking up to 4,600 meters. The Italian-speaking canton of Ticino is south of the Alps, with quite warmer weather and more Mediterranean vegetation. The springs of the Danube, Rhine, and Rhone rivers link us by waterways to the North Sea, to the south to the Mediterranean, and to the east to the Black Sea. The territory is patched with lakes. The biggest of them are Lake Constance with 536 square kilometers and Lake Geneva with 580 kilometers. We share borders with Germany, France, Austria, and Italy. The territory is very densely populated in the area where building is possible, where there are no mountains. Housing space, especially affordable one, is becoming a big problem. Our international situation is a little bit particular, as we are member of the Council of Europe, but not member of the European Union. The people voted against joining the Union on several occasions. We are only part of the EFTA, the European Free Trade Association, and all negotiations with Europe, very close countries to us, are very tricky. They are actually at a stop right now, and we are hoping that they will recover very soon. We are not part of the NATO, but we have signed a partnership for peace with the institution. We are part of the United Nations and since very, very shortly have a seat in the Security Council. The political system, as I have told you before, is a direct democracy, meaning that the people vote on every constitutional change. The motions for changes can be brought forward by all political party or group of people, provided that they gather a certain number of valid signatures. The government is represented by an assembly of the people and an assembly of the cantons. The executive are 7 federal councillors. The presidency of the country is purely representative and is exchanged yearly amongst these councillors. Presently, 3 of the 7 councillors are women, but don't let that fool you. Female vote was only granted in 1971. And women are still very much underrepresented in the different parties and executive positions within the federal government departments. Economy. Switzerland is a rich country ranked 3rd in the OECD ranking with one of the world's highest level of economic freedom. That is remarkable, but because only 150 years ago, the country was very poor, with extremely harsh living conditions in the mountain areas especially. The first Thomas Cook travelers relate having met almost everywhere very poor people begging for a piece of bread. Speaking about Thomas Cook, prosperity came with tourism, mainly the British, and led to the development of the railroad system. This permitted industrialization, first machinery and textile, and later precision instrument watches, luxury goods, chemicals, pharmaceutical goods, and engineering goods. In the service sectors, it's the Lombards from Italy, from northern Italy, who brought with them the know-how and opened the first banks. Later came insurances and commodities trading. With the decline of the industry sector, Switzerland became a service-oriented country. Since the Second World War, a big income comes from the international organizations like the United Nations and multinational companies localizing their headquarters in Switzerland for safety and tax reasons. The Federal Department of Environment, Transport, Energy and Communication supervises the densest rail network in Europe, 100% electrified, with the world's deepest and longest railway tunnel. Switzerland possesses the highest motorway density in the world, financed by gasoline tax and the mandatory purchases of the toll stickers. There are several international airports, like everybody knows, with Zurich, Geneva, Basel, and Bern. And sciences, we have 2 of the world's high-ranking technical universities in Zurich and in Lausanne, who are now running a large variety of research projects, notably in the field of environmental preservation and fight against climate change. So what about our environment? All environmental issues are managed by the Federal Office for the Environment that is led since 2020 by a woman. As quoted by Wikipedia, Switzerland has one of the best environmental records amongst developed nations. Signatory of the Kyoto Protocol, we are one of the world's most active recyclers with a finding system for littering. We have a very efficient system for garbage disposal and recycling with energy-producing incinerators. Our energy production comes to 56% from hydroelectricity because we have a lot of water and a lot of lakes and rivers, and 39% from nuclear power. The government announced a phase out of nuclear power within the next 2 decades. There were several popular initiatives for a quicker withdrawal, but they have been rejected by the people's vote. The energy crisis, though, has been a wake-up call. Only this week, the government decided to develop all kinds of renewable energies, develop further all kinds of new renewable energies, even if it would be detrimental to the environment. I hope that you hear this, even if it would be detrimental to the environment. Only natural protected habitats are excluded. Hydropower, photovoltaics, wind power and heat pumping are to be developed quicker. So how are we standing? You see there is a 2% 5 raise average in climate in a temperature raise. Our neutrality does not preserve us. Like everywhere, the situation is preoccupying. You can see the effects of global warming on this slide. You know, the 2% 5 average raise. Knowing that only 20 years ago, temperature above 28 degrees Celsius would be considered extreme heat. Hearing of peaks up to 37 degrees last summer is very scary. With it come heavy, very heavy thunderstorms with rain downpours and flooding, strong gusts of wind and periods of drought. So you see on this picture, the glaciers are melting. It's preoccupying. There has been some recent talk about using snow cannons to slow down the melting of the glaciers, but experts have already warned that it can only slow down and not stop the process. Vegetation is changing and agriculture will have to adapt. Since a few years they're talking about the change. We have a lot of potato cultures. Well, in a few years we will be cultivating melons. We have less snow, but more rain downpours alternating with periods of drought. The top picture of this dam was taken some years ago, but last year you see the same dam on the bottom photo. It was very, very empty, and that was, well, a quite shocking discovery. So you see another one of our lakes, that our water reserves are dwindling. The groundwater reservoirs are nowadays 30% compared at what they should be at this period of the year. 2 communes in the south, in Ticino, the Italian-speaking canton, where it's especially hot and dry during summer, have already announced for next summer water restrictions for the next few months. And we have also new hazards, like landslides in regions where we never had them before, due to strong erosion of the soils, avalanches, wildfires, floodings. The country has a reputation to be a skier's paradise, but only this week 2 people died in 2 different big avalanches that they provoked by skiing off-slope. Despite very sophisticated security measures and research efforts, they were both found too late. A week ago, we had a lot of snow after a period of weeks of drought. The snow cover is very thick and becomes very heavy with the spring approaching, and the avalanche danger is very, very high. Last summer, the apricot production, because they grow apricots in the Canton Valley, was destroyed by 70% by the tsetse mosquito, which we have not known ever before. who recently appeared in Switzerland due to climate change. The lake of Neuchâtel, you can see on the top the picture, the green cyanobacteries, was affected in certain zones by a so far unknown killer algae. Bathing had to be prohibited during the warmest days. Especially, there were 2 dogs dying of this killer algae last summer. So what is our response system for these disasters? It is actually in first place the army. In 2013, the people of Switzerland voted to maintain a mandatory military service, voting at the same time to restrict the obligation to men and not to integrate any women, but on voluntary basis. We have a very particular system. Mandatory military service starts with a 3-month training period at the age of 18. The following years, until the age of 30, all men have to go back for repetition courses of 3 weeks each year, 2 years. The army is trying to recruit more women on a voluntary basis, but as you can see, these are still baby steps. And I'm absolutely convinced that the picture on the left is a stage photo, so there are not so many women military members. But what does that mean for us and for women? It is that these men are enrolled in the system, they are trained, and they have their whole equipment and the disaster equipment at home. And the entire army can be on the move within a few hours only. And if you don't want to serve in the army for some particular reasons, you will be enrolled in a corps of that is called protection of the population or the civil service. In case of natural disaster, the army intervenes hand in hand with the protection of the population. The army is recruiting voluntary women, but so far there are very few of them. This is important to notice, as only the army and the protection of the population corps have received disaster training and already possess proper equipment, including gas masks, sleeping bag, torch lights, emergency batterings, and so on. Very few women have received the same training and have the same equipment. And during the Cold War, it became mandatory to provide a space in a nuclear shelter for all Swiss citizens. Either you have to build a shelter, and you can see that, you can see a nuclear door actually on the photo down on the slide. You had to build one of the shelters in your own home, or condominium buildings had to convertible cellars, and cities and villages provided communal shelter. These shelters have been maintained even if there are no more stocks of emergency goods in them. These emergency goods, providing living means for the entire population for a few months, are still stocked and maintained by the army in mountain tunnels. In case of natural disaster, these shelters can be immediately made available to all people who cannot go back to their homes. A network of sirens, as you see on top of the roof on the photo, is functioning throughout the country to advise the population of any hazard. There is a plan now to change these into a cell phone message system in the very near future. Oh, I'm sorry, the last slide is missing. Actually, I wanted to show you that the head of the Federal Defense Department is now a woman. And this would be the woman who needs to be addressed. Working on this presentation, I had some difficulties to conclude because Switzerland is really a very good country. We provide very well, but still we are very far from doing what we have to affront now, and we need to do a lot of work. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Annette. I am now turning it over to Angela.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. What a fantastic presentation we have heard from our speakers. But mine to you is, what resonated with you? How do you feel about the situation in New Zealand, or in Ghana, or in Switzerland? And now we're going to go to breakout sessions so we can talk amongst ourselves in groups as to what you would like to do, what you propose to do, and work on building our path forward. Julie, are you going to be breaking us out?
I am going to bear with me. And while I work on this, Hasna has her hand raised. Is it okay that we have her speak for a moment?
Please.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the papers that has been presented. Particularly of interest is the Swiss presentation, because we think of it as a paradise on ice, but there are trouble brewing in the Swiss Alps. The mountain ecosystem is very extremely important. There are reasons to be concerned, because mountain ice is melting, not only in the Swiss Alps, but also in the Himalayan region. And this is a great concern, because Himalayan mountains feed millions of people in the downstream. And now, if it is all melting, where will the water come from when the drier season comes? As well as the monsoon is changing, and this is extremely concern for us. If the monsoon changes, then we have more drought, we have more flood, and we cannot alter that. I want to also remind that Switzerland is home of IUCN, International Union of Conservation of Nature, and it is headquarter is in Gland, and Swiss government is extremely supportive and has been very active in the field of environment because of the presence of IUCN, and I am an elected councillor, which is the highest body, governing body of IUCN. And I would very much like that we have more cooperation with other international agencies dealing with environment like IUCN. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hasna. I'm going to show the slide that I hadn't shown, so we can see a visual of what we want to talk about in our breakout rooms, and then I'll put us in breakout rooms. So hold on a sec. So here is what we're going to reflect on in our breakout rooms that Angela explained. Now I will put us in breakout rooms. So there we go. Alrighty. Let's see. I'm going to make 4 breakout rooms, and they will be assigned automatically.
Technology is wonderful.
Yeah, I'm still learning. Thank you all for your patience. There we go.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, Dilruba. I'm just waiting
Hi.
to close the rooms. They're all in break
Okay.
rooms. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Welcome back.
Thank you. So let's see how many people that come back.
Helen, while everyone, can you hear me, Helen? While everyone's getting back here, will you share your slides with us?
Yes, yes.
Well, everybody, we could talk to everybody. I'm not sure if everybody's here, but the other presenters too. I would love to have the slides.
Judith, Carol can request those. I have ABBA's slides, and we'll make a request to make sure we have permission. And yes, absolutely. I was very touched by everyone's presentation.
Oh yeah.
Amazing. So amazing. And so connecting to all of us everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if you know, I teach in Ghana online at Ashesi University. And every so often, because we do have feminism as a topic in the fall course, I get up on my soapbox. I tell them about Zonta and I say, I won't bug you just once, this semester.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, because I think I've got some young, or my students I think would be interested in Zonta, definitely.
Well, you've got a couple of very active clubs in Accra.
5, yes. And so, I think we should try to do something, maybe a golden Z or something. I don't know, but I'm hoping to be in Ghana in the fall. So maybe we can start working on something. Yeah.
Wonderful. I hope you can. I hope you collaborate with them. That would be exceptional. I'm going to share the screen and give the screen to our Angela, I believe, is going to be speaking.
Well, we had a fantastic conversation. We talked about all the levels, the advocacy level, the service level, the personal level, and kind of did some brainstorming of just a very few of the actions that we can consider. And we've also identified a wonderful potential for a speaker for our next think tank. So it's just fascinating when you pull together the common theme and where we're at and the work that's ahead of us. But one of the large things that came out of it is the urgency to get this moving. So that was what came out of group 2. Someone else want to speak from their group? Eric?
Well, yeah, I can speak from group number 3. Yeah. I'm Pia from Sweden. We also were very impressed. We had Helen in our group, and we were all impressed of all presentations that show that climate change is affecting the whole planet, and it's so important to share the experience, and also that Zonta is a fantastic forum and organization to do the cooperation in, and And it's really good to have these speeches and from different countries to give us wake up, to make us wake up and see the whole picture. It's so easy to just see what you have in front of your nose, and we also thought that solutions to this are very different in different places, different areas on the planet, but it's still important to share the experience and the solutions that you are doing and you're thinking. And this is a very unique opportunity in this forum. And what else did we say? We have some suggestions how to train Zonta members for this disaster preparations. It's very important, and it also looks different, of course, in different parts of the world. And Zonta can also help women to get access to technology and services. And this think tank is a great platform. Once again, we said that. Yeah, and then finally, Helen had a reflection of the loss of food production that really could be a great problem when the nature and the weather disaster comes to your place. So it's a good alert. Have we anyone from group number 1?
I can start us off. I think we started off by recognizing that we sort of, in some of our countries, we share all of these problems, the storms and the mountain issues and the coastal city issues. I think that really all of us in our countries probably share some of those things. And it came up in our group that we need to, in this difficult time of climate change, we need to really be working with men. We need to be partnering with more men's organizations in order to get women's concerns considered and to get women at the table. So we talked a little bit about what men's organizations like He for She are we working with, and we talked about the White Ribbon Campaign, and trying to collaborate more with men's groups on the issue of climate change. And then we talked about technology because of, CSW's focus recently on technology, that women are starting to step down from positions of leadership, when here we are trying to encourage more women in positions of leadership. But the harassment is just making it so difficult to tolerate. But on the other hand, the good part of the technology is the fact that we can all meet like this, that we didn't do this before COVID came along. And now we are meeting and we are having think tanks, and it's through this think tank that we can make a difference. So I think on balance, we came out, it's heading in a positive direction.
Thank you, Bobby. Very, very interesting and good perspective to work together with men, of course. And group number 4, what did you talk about? Anyone from group 4? Or
I can say something. I think I was in group 4. The others can join if we're missing. So we started to talk about, I understand a little bit better about the nuclear power or nuclear shelters in Switzerland. And after that, we kind of stayed on that theme as something which could be also converted into the area we are talking about. So what are the shelters? What are the emergency rooms? What are the which we have available in the various countries? And how are these managed and set up and organized to ensure that women are not experiencing violence or other unpleasant things in those shelters? So that was something which we thought could be relevant. It doesn't matter if you're in Germany, Switzerland, or Bangladesh, because we have histories that happens in all the countries. So that was one area of actions that we thought. And the other one was about making it more say, raise the awareness, you would assume that all clubs have the awareness, but making it more tangible in the clubs by, for example, asking someone from organizations that works with the disasters to come to the clubs and talk about what they're doing, making say an action, or everyone, how would you pack your backpack if an emergency would occur and you immediately have to go to a shelter? What would you take with you? Because that makes it really tangible and make you aware that that could happen also to us. Finally, what was talking about, how can we, on the more advocacy space, find a place for us which is between the traditional Zonta, talking about equality between genders, and the space which are more occupied by the environmental organizations, which really have in-depth knowledge. So where is Zonta space trying to combine those two in the advocacy space? Anyone who wants from the group who wants to add something? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva. And I think that was, we only had 4 groups, Julie, or did we have more groups?
No, we had 4 groups, but Karen had her hand up. So let's see what Karen has to say.
Okay, now if there's, I just thought that we were finished with the groups, and I just wanted something to add, but please continue with the groups.
No, we have finished the groups.
Okay.
Eva,
So, well, I was really excited. That's what I wanted to add, and yeah, and I'm sorry that I'm very emotional on that, but I was really excited to listen to our friends of Ghana and also of Nigeria, and about the bridging issues we have, like, for instance, the issue of data. And so one of the results for me was there are really 3 points which are really interesting for us to advocate on. And this is, yeah, first of all, the issue of data which we are missing in every country, about the effects on on girls and women especially. And the second point, you already told us as well from the other groups, to raise awareness, and as well for disaster preparedness. So I really loved the idea also of Eva was talking about, that to invite those organizations to enhance that. And the third topic for me also is was in terms of the topic of how to pay for loss and damages, so that we are watchdogging on the next COP28, what's going to happen with this aim that the Global North is really supporting. And especially, and that's my last sentence, sorry, under, of course, the aspect of gender, yeah, under the gender, with the gender lens on it. So yeah, and that's what you also asked for, I think, Eva, that how can we find our place as Zonta? We are, of course, focused on the topic of putting a gender lens on all those things and looking for what especially women and girls are in need of, I think. Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you, Karen. We have more. Eva, do you wanted to say something more, Eva?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because there was in our group one thought that I had forgotten, that was raised from one of the members of our group focus, Sabine, the fact that what they have done in their district, that it is more connected to what we normally do within Zonta, where we raise money and we support local projects, that in our clubs or where we sit, that we look out for projects or organizations that do work with women, or women do work that have positive impact on the environment, and try to raise the awareness or try to make them more visible and maybe support them, because that is then also an active thing that they do, which is positive, to try to support them.
Yeah, great.
Great, yeah. So I don't know, Hasna has raised her you raised your hand for a long time ago.
Thank you very much. I wanted to mention that we have not discussed two communities, that is the scientific community and children. Young people in school are extremely concerned about climate change, and like they see so much snow when there should not be, or they see so much flood and they're perplexed. And these are our young warriors. You know, we need to educate them, train them, not to be afraid, but to understand, you know, what their role could be, and the scientific community, because we need good information. We need to know what is happening in the COPs and where the governments get together, what your government or my government is saying, so that we can build up a good rally for a good cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Very important points, I think. And Angela.
Yes. Yes. I'm still very much aware that we are at the beginning steps of a major industrial shift. And it's just like when we were shifting in the industrial age and moving businesses forward. And resistance is very natural to that because change is very difficult. And I'm very excited about the role Zonta can help in how we guide the acceptance of this change so that we can affect the momentum and the speed in which this change can accomplish, because it is just so critical.
Thank you so much. Very, very true, Angela. So over to Carol. I think we're running out of time.
Yes, exactly. Well, I just wanted to give you some good news. If you move the slide forward, please, Julie. Thank you. I just wanted to quickly mention the High Seas Treaty. The ocean provides half of our oxygen we breathe, 95% of the planet's biosphere, and is the Earth's largest carbon sink. And this treaty was agreed by 193 member states and provides the legal mechanism to protect 30% of oceans by 2030. And this is all the ocean that's outside of territorial waters, which you can see it's in the blue color in the little map on the screen. And this treaty will help all nations meet the 30 by 30 pledge from the UN Biodiversity Conference last December. It's taken 20 years to get to this space and has relied on delegates building coalitions instead of division. And it's having to show a willingness to compromise in the final days of the talks. And I just think congratulations to the conference president, Ambassador Rina Lee from Singapore. Again, it's a woman leading some good outcomes. If you go to the next slide, Julie, please. Last month, we talked about our international event on gender equal climate action, how we wanted to have a project. And for those that weren't there last month, in our strategy that we did for Zonta Says Now, we suggested having an Intercontinental Zonta Says Now to Gender Equal Climate Action event around COP28 in November, or if we can't get it moving that quickly, at convention next year. We would like to suggest, we're looking at focusing on disaster preparedness as a way of taking gender equal climate action. And we're thinking of doing the survey of members to find out their baseline knowledge and any actions they are taking individually or in their clubs around gender equal climate action. We want to use that information to develop resources to show what members can do as individuals and in their clubs around disaster preparedness. And our discussions today are really helping us flesh out some ideas already. We want to use the information. Once we've developed it, we can host a webinar to share that information, those resources we've developed, with members and show them how to use the resources. And we want to share any stories of what people have already done, which we've heard some tonight. And we can then have a post survey after we've shared the resources, and to see if the knowledge and actions have increased amongst members. So we were looking at having 4 small teams, one around surveys, developing resources, one to arrange the webinar to share the resources, and one to present the findings either at a parallel COP event or at the Zonta International Convention next year. I've had a couple of volunteers have come through, but if any of you would like to be involved, please indicate in the chat line or email me, and as to which one you'd be like to be involved with: surveys, resources, webinar, or presentations. So I just want to reiterate that. I also asked if people can send through completed frameworks. So just have a think about the things that are possible to do, and we can use these frameworks. If you send them to me, I will collate the information and we can use it to help inform the team that create the resources. Okay, so that's an ongoing project, that one. So I think that's it. It's just really, is there anything that anyone else would like to share? And a final check of the chat line. Pia, was there anything on the chat?
Angela says she will be happy to work on the presentations. And I had earlier that Corinne asked what do they expect, what do we expect from Zonta Says Now, but I think we might have discussed that in the groups already, or you can send us an email about that.
And
Carol,
yeah.
May I say something? I mean, this is I'm just thinking that, well, Zonta Says Now is imminent. We just have to start working with it. And I'm very happy to be in this group, but I have concerns because the clubs are telling me that the Zonta's mission is to work for the advancement of women. So how do we deviate from the mission and start with Zonta Says Now? Because in that case, it will be a broader connotation, working for the community. And correct me if I have given them the right answer. I told them, in this changing world, we need change for the better. And Zonta Says Now is working for climate change and gender equality.
Yeah.
So I said, our projects could aim at creating a better world for women and the society, women, girls, and society, by working for climate change and the effects of climate change.
Yeah.
Like if you have floods, we cannot give food to the women and girls and not give food to the men. Then we will be creating another barrier for our success. Women on top, women in the seats, but having men together. So our projects are, I think, for the next convention, when we are sending proposals or resolutions, we could, add something more specific about the climate change action. Like some resolution that Zonta's mission is this, with special emphasis on climate change, since the world is changing dramatically because of the hazards of climate change. Something like this, we could work out the wording or whatever, but I wanted to add this so that, we are not confused with our mission and vision.
Yes. Yesterday, I was speaking at a workshop in New South Wales, and the question that was coming through from members was, what is the connection between climate change and women, And by the end of my presentation, everybody came up to me and said, right, I've got it now, I understand. And my whole presentation was around the gaps in gender equality because of the disruption caused by climate change. That will expand the gap in the gender inequality. So what we're trying to do is to close that gender gap as quickly as possible. So when we get disruptions, it's not going to be widened to impossible to get back again. So I think that's very important, that it's what we're doing is we're amplifying what we do in Zonta already. And it's the climate change that is the trigger to make us have the urgency for doing this. So we're not changing the mission. The mission is still there. We're building a better world for women and girls. And it's good with build a better world for women and girls. We've got the world in there now, which is environmental. So it's great. It can work on different levels. But no, that's very good points.
And we would be very happy if you share your presentation so that we can take some notes from there and share with our members. Because that will be
Dilruba, I'll be more than happy to do a webinar, a Zoom meeting with anyone which you have there. So just let me know.
And if we organize a Zoom meeting, I can always invite you to be one of the speakers and do give your presentation.
Exactly. Yeah, more than happy to. More than happy. Yes. Happy to help. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for clarifying me.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay. I think next slide. I think the next meeting, next slide again, Julie, is going to be in April, 16th of April. Notice that
16th April?
16, April 16. And note the time. So we change the time every alternate meeting. So the meeting in April will be at 6 p.m. UTC. Okay, today is midday.
It will be my midnight, 12.
Yes, and for me, it will be. For me, it's 2 in the morning.
Yes, it will be your morning. It will be my midnight, and then we'll stay up late. Fine.
Exactly. That's fine. Anyway, I think, so please continue to send in your frameworks. And I've got a couple of volunteers now for the survey. I had Faria and I think Mita. Did you want to do was it the survey, the resources, the webinar, or the presentations that you were interested in helping with? I don't know if she's still there.
Okay.
I'll write it down, Carol. I just have a look at it again and I'll send you a report of what we'd like to do. I'll do it in a day or two. Have a look at it.
That's fine.
That's okay.
I think with the working group, we will start drafting up a questionnaire and then we can review it with each other to see, okay, will this give us a starting point? Okay?
Yes.
All right. I'll do it. I think it would be webinar or presentations, one of those.
Okay, then. That's fine. Thanks a lot for that. That's good. So I just sort of share things around. Excellent. Karen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so you, of course, you can count on me as well with presentations and stuff like that. So I think that within the working group, it's clear that we will share the tasks.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
In the working group, we'll do what we can, but I want to extend to the think tank members to see if there's anyone that has particular experience and skills to bring you in, so as we can actually share these work, because it's going to be really exciting doing this work. And today's speakers have been marvelous